You asked for it. APUSH in 10 minutes or less. So, meet our friend cousin Algernon, Uncle Algernon. I don't know what you want to call him, but he lives here. He will be with us for a lot of these. And today, we are talking about the Antebellum South over the sound of the laundry and the heat and the Thanksgiving tablecloth, so bear with me. But as you know, we have been talking about sectionalism in the United States, and things aren't great. Now, we know the northern economy is reliant on industrialization. They've really moved forward in the world, and we know the southern economy is not. So we want to look at the Antebellum South, and antebellum is a fancy word for pre-war. So we're looking at pre-war South, and the economic system of the South is agriculture, and they are built on the backs of enslaved laborers. So again, the northern part, we know there's so many European immigrants there. We've looked at immigration trends. By the mid-1800s, we've got industry, technology, manufacturing. We're getting all these big cities. Chicago, New York City, obviously. Boston's growing. Philadelphia's growing. We're getting all these people coming to all of these places, and a lot of them are coming from Europe to settle, find work, and to be with people that they knew from Europe. So we have these little immigration community pockets up in the north, but in the south, things are really the same as they've been since the revolution, right? And as more people come in, we get this idea of nativism, which I know we've touched upon, is this idea of who is American and who's not. And to be American, you have to be white for the most part by this time. And who determines whiteness? The government, of course. And we are going to use nativism to continue to divide our political parties. And the political parties are already falling apart. Remember, the Whigs have already fallen apart. They've turned into the Republican Party. So now we have this idea of immigrants, and also we still have all of these enslaved people. And we've just passed the Fugitive Slave Act. The Dred Scott decision has been handed down, which says that enslaved people are property, not people. So things in the South are very much the same. They are living the old style. The social elite are in charge. And this is a very small percentage of the population, but they are the ones in charge. And as we talked about with Sumner's beating on the floor, men are expected to be gentlemen, right? They should be educated to an extent, but you don't want to be too educated because that's for those Yankees, right? You have to be educated, but educated in a different type of way. Going to Europe, going on this world tour, that's not the kind of education we're looking for in the South. We're looking for shooting, riding, gentlemen, that kind of education. They are expected to manage the finances, of course, and do all of the leisure activities, the hunting, the drinking, because they're not working. Somebody's working for them. But for the most part, especially in the elite families, the men are expected to hold this standard of leisure, but also be in charge. Women are supposed to be demure, stay out of the way, stay out of the sun, make sure you have this beautifully pale skin. They're presented to society as a lady when they turn 16, maybe even a little bit before then. They have their debutante balls, and they are expected to marry the gentleman. Once they're married, then they run the household. They take care of the children. They manage the enslaved people. Again, they're not really doing a lot of the work. The enslaved population is doing the majority of the work. But they are what allows the elite planter class to live this super leisurely life. And it's not a good life for anybody who's enslaved, obviously. And we have talked about slave revolts and uprisings and insurrections, and we know that they didn't just lay down and let it happen. And even amongst the revolts and the revolutions and the rebellions and the insurrections, there are plenty of enslaved people who maybe didn't get a chance to join those revolts, but still wanted to resist their enslavement. And you have to be careful because you don't want to be beaten. We've read those accounts. We know what happens to certain enslaved people. Some enslavers are worse than others, obviously, but you just never know. So they used a concept of paternalism against their enslavers. And this is this idea that the enslaver community has built around them, that they're children, right? They need to be led. So they're going to embrace that idea and say, well, I'm going to be childlike then. I will be ignorant to an adult because that's what they're expected, right? So they're gonna lean into that. And if something goes wrong, if something happens or their work day is too slow, then they can lean into this paternalism and say, I didn't know, I'm just a child, I'm just a lowly enslaved person. You can't expect me to work to your expectation when I simply don't have the capacity. Other people were more subtle, or maybe less subtle, I guess, and they would do something like, oh, oops, I broke the tool. If the tool's broken, you can't really work today. Or, oh my goodness, I accidentally poisoned the head of the household. I just, my poor enslaved brain couldn't figure out that this was nightshade and not blueberry juice, and so I accidentally poisoned you. What a shame. So, again, there's all sorts of forms of rebellion and resistance. It doesn't just have to be uprisings like Nat Turner's Denmark Vesey. But we do have to be careful because we know that the enslavers are going to be, for the most part, dangerous should they find out that they've been messed with, right? Enslavers, most of them use physical coercion and physical violence, psychological coercion, physical violence, to keep the enslaved captors respectful of the order of the system. So some of the common punishments, if you were enslaved, you could be threatened with sale. We know that's a big one. Or maybe not you, but they'll sell your family. Lashings with a whip, and punishment gear. Neck braces, they've got balls and chains, leg irons, or paddles with holes. So when they beat you with the paddle, the holes produce blood blisters. And it's important to note that by 1860, right before the start of the Civil War, again, when I said it's not most Southern people aren't this elite class, 76% of the South are non-slaveholders. 17% have 1 to 9 enslaved people. 6.6% have 10 to 99 enslaved people. And 0.1% have over 100 enslaved people. That elite class is really, really small. But they are so in charge. We talked about this, right? The Southern conspiracy to run the government. They are so in charge that they have the entirety of the South backing this idea that the federal government is trying to ruin their way of life. And that's going to be a really big deal as the Civil War comes up. And it's been 8 minutes. We did it. APUSH under 10. I'll see you later.